2, 1. Hey everybody, we're at the Imp and the Ogre. My name is Paul.
This is Ryan.
And today we are tackling the Tomb of Horrors.
The one, the only, the famous Tomb of Horrors. Tomb of Horrors by Gary Gygax, the one of the co-creators of D&D. This is a first edition adventure designed for high-level PCs, so from the 10th to 14th level range. It was originally released in 1978 as a convention game. It's currently available on the DM's Guild website. Brief synopsis. It's a death trap dungeon.
You're going to the Tomb of Horrors. And this was a tournament adventure, correct?
Yeah, there used to be, I don't know if there still is, so there might be still, but the competition D&D used to be a thing. So you'd have a bunch of groups running the same adventure, and then they'd accumulate a score or points or something. Like, I don't know the exact details of it. Which is one thing, like as a death trap dungeon, this would be very easy to score. It's basically whatever group got the furthest before they die.
Before everyone died. Yeah.
I remember reading somewhere about sort of like the lore of this game it was designed to kill his son's PC, I believe it was. Because if you look in like the lore of Greyhawk, I think it was Lord Robillard or whatever was his son's warrior or fighter. Like I could be completely wrong, so take this with a grain of salt. But I vaguely remember reading that like he got tired of his son and his other co-PCs just murdering everything and having no challenge, and they were complaining about never having challenges, so he created a dungeon solely to kill the PCs, and that's what spawned this is the lore that I remember reading, which could all be just made up. Well,
surprise, he probably killed them all.
Possibly. I don't actually know that part of it.
So this is more of, I wrote it down as like a cerebral adventure. There's not combat in it.
The intro literally says, this is a thinking person's module, and if your group is a hack and slay gathering, they will be unhappy. Like that's from the man himself.
You're meant to solve puzzles, figure them out, and hopefully you don't die along the way.
Yeah. I just want to sort of say that this is considered sort of a legendary adventure. It's on, a lot of people's best of lists, top couple of adventures. I don't remember if this one was the number one D&D adventure of all time type of thing. I can't remember which hit the top spot on those lists. But I'm going to say that it's got to be mostly a nostalgia thing. Like from pure adventure mechanics and whatnot, this isn't even my favorite first edition adventure that we've covered on the podcast.
Yeah.
By a long run. It's the kind of adventure that you remember because of the way your PC died.
Yeah.
And I totally understand that. I have like my firmest and most favorite adventuring memory is not even from D&D. It's from a Call of Cthulhu game that I played where my character made one roll and then died. One roll. I made a character and investigated a room. A bed animated. I made a roll to see if I got out of the way. I didn't. I got knocked out of a window and died. And that was...
And then your next character was the paramedic that was
the police officer.
Yeah, that was
the police officer that investigated the murder. And then he went crazy. and so you remember when the bad things happen.
Yeah.
More so than, like, I couldn't tell you what happened to all of my D&D characters that kind of just...
out.
That fizzled out. They just retired. They finished the adventure, and then, we won. Remember that time we did that adventure, and then we won? Sure.
Yeah. I think, like, this adventure, after having read it, would be a fun, like, coup de grace culmination of, say, you and I played in 3 different groups and had 3 different characters. We retired at level 8, and there was a call to... find the Tomb of Horrors, and you get to relive these 3 PCs that you had, and you have 3 lives per se, and you're going in. So like each player at the table has 2 or 3 characters that they've had in their D&D career. And like they could have brought it from a different campaign or a different game, but you're going in with the knowledge that you're probably going to die doing all this, but you each get like 3 tries at it effectively.
I think this is definitely the type of adventure that your players have to know that survival is not guaranteed. Like the likelihood of you succeeding is minimal, and then success is super arbitrary too. Like,
there is no success in
winning this, like getting to the end and defeating, like the Tomb of Horrors is the tomb of a demi-lich. Asherak, I think his name is. So I guess you consider winning is finding Asherak and killing him, but
he's not in the tomb.
He is all the way at the bottom.
There's like an apparition of him.
There's the fake one, and then there's the real one. Trust me.
All right.
Even the tomb befuddled you, but
I guess so.
But basically, finding like the reward for finding the actual demi-lich is minimal. This is an adventure that's mostly designed to steal your stuff and then kill you. Which, if your players are fine, then that's it. But I don't know if this would be fun. You know what I mean? Like, just
it wouldn't be. This is why like having lives would be more fun, because it's like trial and error, and the error is fatal, right? Like if you fail at something, you're dead.
Yeah.
There's not a like try again. So if you were playing more than one character, you would have a higher chance of getting through things, and maybe you wouldn't feel so like, well, that sucked. You know, I died on the first thing that we stepped into.
Yeah.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at that point, it's not really D&D anymore, which once again, like, who cares? Like, it doesn't really matter. It would be its own thing, which, fine. But I think it kind of needs to be the expectation of it, you know, that you're just doing the experience, right? Like you could literally just have it where your players got do-overs and you just kept track of how many people died, you know, like, and whoever had the fewest deaths over the course of it, you know, won. Which I'd be okay with too, you know, as sort of just for fun to see how many deaths you had versus just and then the party died, game over. Because that could literally happen 5 minutes into this.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, people are getting the short end of the stick immediately as soon as you walk into this. The adventure hook for this just assumes that your PCs are high enough level and that they've heard through lore and legend and any abilities that they have that they'll be able to locate the entrance of the tomb. And from there, the adventuring begins.
Yeah, they're looking for this tomb and they find it and they try to dig it open.
Now, one thing that I did like about the start of the tomb is that there's false entrances to it. And I just think that idea is cool in general.
Yeah, I mean, this adventure is designed to punish standard adventuring tactics.
Yeah.
Is the one thing I sort of noticed. So I think that's where the false entrances all fall into play. That you find an entrance, you assume it's the real entrance. So you go full, you know, bore in it. Here's the entrance. Let's all get all our stuff and go in and get going. And I think that's the whole reason that there's everywhere you go through this is if players are sort of using the normal quote unquote tactics that they've developed for doing first edition dungeons, they're going to run afoul of all kinds of nastiness by design, right? Like this was an adventure designed to trick people and kill them out of punishment, out of spite. I don't know. So yeah, there was this and one real one.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to dig them out.
Yep.
So
well, yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, and then I think there's like pit traps right at the start of the dungeon.
Of the real entrance, right? I mean, let's talk about the false ones first. Or do you want to go right into the
you can talk about the false ones. All I made note is that they were collapsing tunnels.
Well, the first false one looks like a normal entranceway, but as soon as you try to open the door, it drops the ceiling on you. Right? Again, no save, no check to see if it's trapped.
Yep.
Right? So you open the door, the ceiling collapses. Maybe you die.
Maybe you die.
Right? Probably not. The damage isn't quite there based off the character level, but a magic user could easily die. You don't have a lot of hit points as a magic user. The second one has a pressure plate that triggers a stone block to fall from the ceiling, basically sealing you in the tomb, the false tomb, for forever. And what I liked about it and it comes up a couple of times in this adventure, is that, a player steps on the pressure plate. As soon as they do, you start counting.
3,
exactly.
4,
so you don't give
5.
the players time to respond. You just start counting. And then when you hit the certain time points, you describe what happens. And the idea is basically that players have a certain amount of time to respond because there's the distance they need to travel before this falling block seals them in.
Yeah.
So if they don't start running immediately or within, the first 3 seconds, they're going to have a bad time. And I think that's a cool game mechanic.
It's fun because like the first person that steps on the pressure plate, nothing happens, but you're counting to 10 in your head, and Joe 3 PCs back is the one that gets squished.
No, I just thought it was, I don't think I do that ever, is to put a time pressure, like a real time pressure on your players to make decisions for their characters. And I've definitely heard of things and read things where people used egg timers and whatnot to put time pressure on the PCs to simulate the fact, especially in combat.
Yeah.
So you don't have 15 minutes to decide the optimal course of action. You've got 30 seconds to decide what your player is going to do to try to push the narrative first and foremost. You don't want a combat to take a half an hour if it doesn't have to. But it is kind of interesting to try to simulate the real life stress and pressures that would be on your characters.
Yeah.
You don't have an infinite amount of time to respond. And I kind of like that, something goes click under your foot and this timer begins. Now, in these days, the non-70s, you could probably just have a timer on your phone or something like that to get things.
I still think like an hourglass timer is nice, though, something that they can see, right? Like whether or not you're using it for something, but the fact that it's there and you're continually, maybe flipping it back and forth, all your players are like, oh, he's tracking something. Yeah. Like, what is it, Or you just do it every so often that there's actually something happens when the timer runs out. Yeah. Because, in combat, for example, if 30 seconds go by and they haven't made a decision, you just go, oh, you were paralyzed in fear this turn or something, right? Like, because I think that is a problem. People spending way too long to make a decision choice that's supposed to be in 6 seconds of...
Or discussing it completely and making the best tactical decision.
Yeah.
I was reading something on Reddit recently, and one suggestion that I saw was that you have, X number of 30 seconds or whatever, or a minute to make your decision. And if you don't, the default is you take the dodge action, right? Like instead of just saying you do nothing, okay, you ran out of time, you're just going to dodge, which I think is a good way of doing it, to be honest, right? Like it's not overly punitive, like getting advantage on, or getting enemies getting disadvantage at attacking you is not the worst thing as a penalty overall. But anyways, from a trap response standpoint, I just thought that was kind of neat. And it comes up again for a later trap, but to try to simulate the consequences of inaction. Now, that being said, this is, again, a place where your PCs could get stuck and sealed in immediately. And I say like sealed in air quotes. At this level, if you have a magic user, they have teleport and things like that. So it's not like you as a party can really get trapped, right? Transmute stone to mud and things like that exist. So they should have the tools to get away from these types of complications, more so than some of the later ones.
Yeah, well, okay, so making it after you get through the false entrances, if you don't find the pit traps in the first place, you have what I calculate a 76% chance of falling in, and you get hit by like you roll a percentage to see how many spikes you get hit by. And then you have to save on each spike that you're hit by. And if you fail any of the saves, you're dead.
Save or die.
Yeah. So that's the first save or die mechanic in there.
There's lots of pit traps. The real entranceway has all those pit traps. One of the pit traps isn't a real pit trap, that you're supposed to go into that pit trap because it leads to a tunnel. To help you get out of the room. The green demon face. How mean is that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, for those of you who don't know, and I don't know, anybody who's listening to this who hasn't heard of some of the Tomb of not Tomb of Annihilation, the Tomb of Horrors, it's a giant green demon face that's mouth is large enough to crawl into, and it's a sphere of annihilation in there.
Yep.
So anything that gets put into the mouth gets destroyed, and if you crawl into the mouth, you get destroyed.
Yep.
Like, no save, no nothing, your character ceases to exist. And that just seems super mean.
I mean, this is the ideology of Gary Gygax when he was writing this, is the magic arch that is like right at the beginning.
Oh, gee, the teleportation one? You end up sealed in another room?
No, not that one.
There's a bunch of...
So this is the magic archway, one of the ones that I have. There's no disabling this trap. If stepped into the mist, the PCs return naked with their gear in the Lich's lair.
Oh, yes, there's a bunch of those.
Yeah. So there's a note that says cruel, but most entertaining to the DM.
Yeah, that can happen in a couple... Yeah, the magical archway.
Yeah, there's the teleporting mist, where you change the location of the stones and it changes where the mist teleports you. Yeah,
the thing that I thought was mean about the magical archway thing is, I don't know if that's the same one you're talking about, because it's in a couple of places, but there's one where it's set up like it's a puzzle. Like, there's different buttons that you can push and things that you can slide around. It looks like there's a puzzle to be solved, but there isn't a puzzle to be solved.
It just changes where you get teleported.
It does nothing, right? And then whenever you walk through the archway, your gear gets stolen and your PCs are like, no save, no nothing.
Yep.
And your gear is basically gone forever. And at this level, your gear accounts for a lot of your strength.
Well, everything.
Right? Like, how are you going to get it back? Because it literally all ends up in the real Lich's lair. At the bottom of this thing is the place where you would get your stuff back. And then I don't know how you make it there without your equipment. I mean, like, there was a teleportation trap in the real entranceway area that if you trigger it, you end up in a sealed room that has another puzzle in it. Like, it's lever puzzle. Yeah. Basically, if you pull the wrong lever, the floor drops out from underneath you. You fall 100 feet, and that's it.
And it's also like the lever trap is not just I pulled the lever. It's like you need to describe which directions you're pulling into to get the right combination.
Well, that's it. Yeah, it's in a different place where there's like you have to just I pulled forward and then to the left and all like that. We'll get to that. That one was super mean too. But this was just a random teleportation thing where you just end up in a hole to die. And how are you going to get out of there? Like, if you survive the 100-foot fall, you're now in a tiny little hole with a bunch of bones and things like that. I mean, I didn't go through every last thing. I literally just have a section here that says other nastiness because it's mostly just mean, right? The whole area is under an effect. So if your player tries to shift into, like, become ethereal or shift into the astral plane to try to just, like, bypass walls, it summons demons. Like, every round or turn or however the terminology is that you're under one of these effects, there's a chance to summon a demon. So I can't remember what the level power 9 or whatever, like the top tier one. I can't remember how they divvied it up in first edition. So it's super mean.
Intentionally so.
Intentionally mean. I mean, it's one of those situations where as your players get more powerful, they have more tools to get around basic problems.
Yep.
Right? So this is a way of getting around a solution that PCs have to problems. And this is actually kind of exemplifies an issue there is, I find, with higher level adventures, is that you can't create and run a higher level adventure in the same way that you would a lower level one because of magic. Fully because of magic, right? Like if you don't have magic, then it doesn't really matter because your players don't have ways of walking through walls or dissolving walls or teleporting places or flying, right? Magic makes standard dungeon crawling basically impossible. So what you end up doing is having to create higher level dungeons where there's lead in the mortar between all of the stones, and the enemy is always under the effect of this ability that prevents them from being scryed upon, right? Because they're casting Mind Blank every morning or whatever spell it is. So basically what you end up having is, because you create tools that allow overcoming of problems, you now end up having to create other tools to overcome the PC's tools to prevent them from trivializing the challenges. And it's this weird sort of arms race that ends up happening, which I don't like because it takes away your player's abilities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no point that if I give my fighter a sword, there's rarely going to be a situation where I'm going to create an encounter where that sword can't be used.
Yeah.
Right? But I gave my player, my wizard got a scroll of teleport, and now I'm saying, oh, that doesn't work here. Or, they invested in learning how to plane shift, and you're just like, it doesn't work.
Yep.
Because of reasons.
Yep.
And that, to me, isn't fun. So I think that exemplifies some of the problems that exist with magic in these systems. Is it's too powerful?
Yeah, well, it is, especially at the high levels, right? So, but what are you going to do? I mean, we're talking about the Tomb of Horrors, which is meant to be killed, but I think we're speaking generally about high-level magic now. And I agree. Like,
I'm just saying why some of the things in the Tomb of Horrors seem unfair against certain types of characters. And this is a bigger, discussion regarding this particular example. But I would argue that it makes more sense to make magic users less powerful, quote unquote, or just remove those abilities, right? They seem unnecessary, or what you do is you create them as part of either ritual type things that require multiple people, right? I have no problem with teleportation, but if teleportation requires a physical like a teleportation circle and only can be used to teleport between teleportation circles or between like Stonehenges or something like that to me allows for the problem that is trying to overcome, right? You can have a globe-trotting adventure, right? Which is the whole reason to have teleportation is to...
Well, I mean, like EverQuest throwback, but like the way that druids and wizards could actually teleport was just to druid stones or wizard spires, and there's and they were actually coveted because of that, right? Like they're a useful tool for getting around. Being able to teleport kind of wherever you want is, useful for the players, but ends up being a problem for DMs when you're trying to run an adventure and you can just pop in wherever you want to.
I think it's the popping out aspect, I think, that can be super problematic, right? And that's just that's one example. Passing, like Passwall, I'm not even sure that's still a 5th edition spell, but that's the weird thing in D&D in general that I kind of never understood is there's no reason to have a castle, right? Castles don't matter if there's lots of magic users.
Yeah.
Right? How do you deal with the castle? Somebody flies over top of it and then opens the door. Right?
True.
Or the wizard just turns the wall into mud and then everybody walks through the side, right? Or the cleric casts Earthquake and the walls come down, right? There's literally no reason to have medieval castles because you can't keep a wizard out, right? It's completely has nothing to do with the Tomb of Horrors, but in my brain, why isn't there just wizard kings ruling everything all the time? Because a single fireball can kill 100 soldiers.
Maybe it is that arms race, though. If there's power on both ends, they're more hesitant to use it because then that's going to be used against them. And maybe a high-level magic wars that they're just spent casting counterspell on each other the entire time until they need to go to bed.
They were basically discussing magic users as nuclear weapons.
They kind of are, though,
and that's problematic.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it would be better if Magic just got capped at like a certain low level point, and at that point you could multi-class into something else, because lower mid-tier level Magic is like useful and fun and like does good things, but like it's once you get into those like 7th, 8th, 9th level spells where it's you could take down an entire kingdom with an earthquake spell. Yeah,
it's the situation where like we're literally discussing that certain classes become nuclear deterrents, while the other one is the captain of the guard, right? Yeah. Like it's a well-documented issue, right? Like, obviously, the power level of Magic users has always been a problem. But from a DM standpoint, like, power balance of the PCs is not a huge issue. Like, I want everyone to have fun. But when you basically have to create situations that prevent your players from using their skills, that's when I don't think it's fun from sort of a game design standpoint, right? Like, it's me forcing me to take someone's kit away to balance an encounter.
Yeah.
Right. And you never see a situation where like your rogue can't pick locks.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can't cure. Right. Oh, you can't turn undead. Right? But with wizards, we're like, oh no, you can't use that spell because of reasons.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just the issue mostly that I didn't like about the effect in the Tome of Horrors, where like you can't use these abilities. Now, granted, it doesn't always have to just be the wizard using those abilities. There's magic items that allow it to happen too.
And this dungeon was designed to stop this and kill people. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to take away your fun bits and to kill you, but I don't know.
So, I mean, like, the first place that you're supposed to end up going into is the false crypt of this place. I think it's the natural order of things. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. No problem.
Before we get there, we talked about it again, but I wanted to revisit. You remember you mentioned like the different switches that you need to describe the different, like the actual physical thing that you do to it?
Yep.
Was it just me, or is that like super mean?
It is.
Right? Like overly punitive. And to put this in perspective, at this time you're being shot by bolts from the walls every round.
Yep.
So you're taking nonstop low-level damage as the character, and the game expects you, the player, to describe everything that you're trying to do to this lever. Because it's not just I pull the lever, it's I twist the lever and then I pull it down and to the left. Yep. Okay, that door opens. You move to the next door. And then this one needs to be pushed up, then down, and then, whatever. Like you can't just say I pull the lever. It wants you to describe what you do to the lever, and I whisper sweet nothings to it while I twist it, right? Like it's literally that type of ridiculousness, and that just struck me as not fun. Right? I'm okay with there being difficult traps or bait and switches or red herrings, but when it's structured just to be frustrating, which that whole actual encounter just seems frustrating, because it requires you to literally sit down and like write down everything you tried so you don't forget and repeat yourself over and over and over again. Doesn't seem fun. And the bolts always hit you, like they never miss. I don't think necessarily that's the worst thing I came across, but of all the stuff in the Tome of Horrors, I kind of felt that was like the least fun, right? And a lot of this doesn't strike me as fun.
No, I don't think you're having like a ton of fun playing this adventure. I think that's the point. The point is not to have fun. The point is to fail.
Yeah, but there's a difference between like failing and not having fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can have fun and still lose. I play Arkham Horror all the time, and I lose all the time. But I had fun playing it, right? Or you're playing any other type of board game where, like, not everybody gets to win, but you can still lose and still have had fun while you were losing. A lot of stuff in this adventure doesn't seem like I'd be having fun while I was losing. right? Like, because again, it's not an attrition, right? Like, it's not like you're trying your best and we keep getting through and we're getting closer and closer and closer. It's like, yes, we passed that one, we passed that one, we passed that one, and we missed that trap, we're dead.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's a different type of punishing. Right?
Well, and everything's save or die, basically.
That's when they give you a save.
Yeah.
Some of it is just die.
Yeah.
We can just take turns bouncing back and forth if you want. Because I have some other things I wanted to just mention as we go through.
Yeah. So false crypt. There's a fear gas tunnel. I thought that was kind of neat-ish.
Well, the false crypt is actually one of... I basically have a list of nastiness, and then I have a list of niceness. And the false crypt is actually on my niceness list.
Well, there's not things in there that are going to insta-kill you.
From a game design standpoint, I thought having a was genius. And I could see myself just stealing that in a heartbeat. I thought it was great because it totally makes sense and it's historically accurate. There's been plenty of like mummies' tombs where there was like the false tomb that was expected that was going to get looted, and then there was the secret passage that led to the real tomb. But it's great. There's the zombie that looks like, it's illusioned up to look like it looks like a lich. There's a fake magic weapon. Right, there's the magic weapon that you find that the fake lich is all like, no, and then like you hit him and it like there's this whole. It's basically a whole theatrical production, and to make the PCs think that they.
Once you defeat them, the illusion spell goes off that everything's collapsing and crumbling. So
and there's a ton of treasure in there too. So it's not like you don't get anything to show for it. Like you come away with some amazing items and a lot of treasure. So you can think like you won, even though you've only found half. And
at that point, you could very well feel that way because you're probably without most of your friends.
Entirely possible.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought that was super cool.
If you make it beyond that, I thought the next thing that I enjoyed and thought was like awful was in the agitated chamber, the tapestries that were covered in slimes. That if these tapestries are ripped in anywhere somehow, there's green and brown molds that just fall onto the PCs, and because of the sheer volume of them, that's just an instant death.
Yeah, I don't actually list. There's so many on my list. You mentioned the gas thing.
Yeah,
I want a little bit more.
Well, there's two sleep. I talked about the fear gas.
Oh no, sorry.
You're talking about the sleep gas with the steamroller.
Steamroller. I'm talking about something completely different. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. So there's a door that you open, and I can't remember. Is this the door that they hear people screaming from behind? Because that was another place.
Door and there's a true door. That's all I know.
But there's this door that you open, and the room behind is just pressurized with sleep gas. So I don't even think you get a save. You fall asleep for 1d4 turns, effectively.
Yep.
And then you roll each turn. There's a 1 in 4 chance that this giant stone steamroller activates and then pulps you.
Yep. Great. My next favorite way of dying is the Chamber of Hopelessness, aptly called, where players can get unfortunately. And you can either choose to die slowly of starvation because there's enough water that trickles into the room to keep you sustained. Or you can leave the room into a room full of animated weapons and just be beaten to death.
Right.
So it's just up to you.
You can choose the quick death or the slow death. Yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah, that was a good one. How about the... this is one of the things I thought was awesome. There's a door that bleeds when you try to cut it. So if you're trying to cut down the door, it starts to bleed, and it bleeds so much that the entire room can fill up with blood, and you can drown in blood.
Yep.
I thought that was gross, and
what I liked about that
entertaining
as well, though, is you can heal the door to stop the flow of blood. And if fire touches the blood, it turns to gas and instantly kills everybody.
Yeah, so if you try to cauterize the wound.
So there is a point to like doing all these things and that you're finding keys along the way.
Oh, yeah.
But to find one of the keys, you have to save versus touch when you grab it. And if you fail, you can no longer look at it or touch it. So you could potentially get all this way and everyone tries to grab the key and everybody fails.
Yeah, well, one of the keys is in the bottom of a jug full of acid.
Yeah.
So you like stuff your arm, and it's a stone, like a stone urn that's part of the floor. So you either got to smash it, dumping acid everywhere, or you got to submerge your arm and take damage and root around trying to find acid. It's ridiculous. There's a pit trap that tips the PCs into a pool of magma.
Yeah, I like that one as well.
This is the one where they're lured into it. So they listen to the door and they can hear cries for help or something like that. And when they get through the door, it's just a trap to dump them into lava and they die.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's mean. Some other things that I didn't really care for. There's an archway that when you walk through, it shifts your PCs to the opposite alignment and the opposite decks.
Yeah.
I thought that was... Well, literally, I just wrote that it seemed a bit juvenile and something that I think our hobby has outgrown.
Yeah.
To a certain
it did say you
extent.
could walk through it and reverse the effects, but if you did it again, then they were irreversible.
I can't remember. Like, it reversed half of them if you walk through it once, and it just or a second time. So I just thought... it's.
But if you were right in the beginning and saying you made this for his son, maybe that would be something
designed,
as a kid that you'd be like, ah.
I think it was a grown man at the time they did this. But I think it definitely is something for a particular audience, I guess. But like this is also something that you used to see in D&D. Like there's the girdle of what's it called? Opposites.
I found that item in Baldur's Gate. Yeah,
it's sex or whatever. So there's been cursed items that have done this before. So it's something in the game, but like, why would this be part of a deterrent for an evil tomb? Like, it's just in there as a joke that's not funny anymore, I guess is the way to sort of think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, alignment doesn't really matter in the same way it used to be. Like, if you were lawful good and you walked through there and you became chaotic evil, you just start attacking everybody. Like, that's what it used to effectively be. And that's not really how we want to run things anymore. Oh, there's a crown that you need to get, but it needs to be touched with a scepter. Mm-hmm. But it needs to be touched with the right end of the scepter. Mm-hmm. And if you touch it with the wrong end of the scepter, you're disintegrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. That was I think you need to do that to find the other key.
Yeah, to get the key. And the keys are what you actually use to find Asherak's real tomb. So it's in a secret door, like behind a secret door, in another secret part, in another secret part, and you need these 2 keys or 3 keys. I can't remember exactly. But once you get all of those things, then you can open up the hidden tomb.
Yep. And
then the payoff kind of just sucks. Right? So in there's Asherak's skull, which has gems in its eyes.
Mm-hmm. And if you touch the skull, your soul is absorbed into the gems.
Well, he basically summons Asherak back from wherever he's wandering the plains with his spirit. And he steals the PC soul. Mm-hmm. And he can do this up to 8 times, stealing people's souls.
But you never end up fighting Asherak.
That's Asherak. His skull is Asherak.
Yeah,
that's
what I mean. Like, that's why I was saying, like, you never run into him. He's just like...
He's there at the end. You fight him and you die.
Well, you touch the skull and you die.
Well, he comes back. It floats, and then he uses beams or something like that. Like, it's an ability that he can use. But there's nothing in there. Right? There's not the only treasure that you would find in the skull tomb are the gems that are part of his skull.
Yeah.
And the treasure that was stolen from you when you walk through the misty portals.
Yep.
Right? So at the end of it, there's no payoff. Right? Right? So like, what are you doing in this tomb?
Yeah, if we're looking at this from like a would we run this, why would we run this adventure aspect, we wouldn't.
Oh, no, I'd never.
There's no motivation for the PCs to be in there, in which that's what we're talking about right now.
That's what I literally wrote down. I would never run this adventure, and if I was a player in it, I don't think I'd have fun. Yeah,
so I mean, like, that's why when we said at the beginning, I think if you're running this is just the point, is to die. Or see if you can do it.
To get to the end and touch him before, But I'm trying to think of, if you wanted to use this in an actual campaign, why would you? Right? Like you'd have to have an actual reason to go in there. And Asherak's not doing anything. Right? Like, he's not bugging anybody.
No, he's gone.
Right? He's been gone for forever. The tomb has been forgotten about for forever. So I mean some of this just ties into the fact that most first edition style games, there wasn't really a point.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it was mostly about it's the journey, not the destination, if you will, and exploring stuff and finding treasure is a reward in and of itself, I guess. But in this dungeon, finding the false tomb is like great. Like, you get tons of awesome stuff. Like, walk away and you're not really missing out.
Maybe
anything.
Maybe that's sort of the point of that, is that you could cash out. But if you were clever enough to maybe realize that there's more beyond that, it's just all failure beyond that.
Yeah, but like again, you're punishing people that aren't tricked by the false tomb, right? Like, there's no grand reward for making it. And again, that might be an intentional design decision, that it's disappointment.
I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
It's that you get all the way to the end, and even if you beat him, you get a ton of experience points if you actually defeat him. And the gems that are in his skull are worth a ton of money, right? So it's not like it's nothing, but
I think that was maybe the point, that if you're so fed up with someone having success that even if you win, you still didn't really win in the end. Like, you came out with nothing.
Yeah. But I don't know that killing your PCs should ever be the end goal. I mean, like, Lizzie think that I'm all about just murdering my PCs, and I don't think that should ever be a goal. But I think,
but this doesn't. Murdering your PCs is okay. Not giving them an option is, I don't think, fair, right? Like the no save and dies and the.
Well,
right?
I think there's a big difference between murdering your PCs and letting your PCs die. Like, creating situations that can kill your PCs is fine because the PCs have to decide to engage with what's there. And I mean, granted, this whole tomb is totally optional. Your PCs are deciding to engage with the Tomb of Horrors. But
I also don't like no amount of preparation by your PCs can prepare them for what's inside, right? Like, they can't overthrow the disadvantages that they have by any kind of preparation because you've removed their tools by the mechanics of the dungeon, and everything is just death.
Yeah, I mean, oh, but before I forget, there's one other nice, interesting thing that I did enjoy that I wanted to mention is there's, was it the four-arm golem, gargoyle statue puzzle? So, to actually find the hidden tomb, you need a gem of seeing, effectively. But the way to get the gem of seeing, you need to sacrifice 10 gems to the statue, which crushes them, which 10 seems like an arbitrary number. And I could see a lot of people just, like, not doing it forever. Like, it destroys one, just like, well, we're not doing that again.
Yeah.
But you got to keep pumping in gems, and I think value doesn't matter. It just has to be a gem.
Yeah.
And on the 10th one, you get this magic item that you need. And I just thought that was kind of interesting in that...
But you might not even see the magic item because it's invisible.
Oh, right.
Right? It just rolls away. There's the broken gargoyle arm that it was clutching. Yeah. And it opens or whatever and then releases the gem. And if you don't have... But there is an item that gives you, I think, the sight ability that you can find earlier, too. So it's like another one of those things. Even if you manage to do the right amount of gems, if you don't have your true sight on, you're not going to see the thing that you needed anyway.
Well, it feels a lot like a point-and-click adventure to a certain point. Like, you got to click on this right thing, and then you click on this right thing, and if you don't click on this thing, then you die.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I guess, not fun. Like, I mean, for lack of a better word, none of the actual challenges feel like I would enjoy doing them. And, you know, like, I guess sense of relief that you didn't die.
I guess so, yeah.
Is the best that you could do. I mean, when reading this, I was like, well, I'm at that level, so minions, right? The way I look at this is I would literally just hire a bunch of low-level people or summon goblins or something like that and just, like, flood the tomb and let them
figure it out. Yeah.
Right? Or summon monster and let it walk down the hallway to see what happens, right? Like, that type of elimination to deal with the traps would be the way to go about it.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not a good person, you just throw people at the problem. Now, I haven't actually looked at the other updated versions of this. So I know they did a return to the tomb, or an updated version of it. As a return to Temple of Elemental Evil, I'm thinking of. But like for third edition, there's a one I haven't looked at yet. And for 5th edition, I know the Tomb of Annihilation was inspired by this, but I haven't read the Tomb of Annihilation. I know it's not supposed to just be a pointless murder trap. I think it's... I think the tomb itself is supposed to be sort of the culmination of your little campaign that you've been doing with it. But like, unless your players are masochists, I don't know particularly why.
Like, I feel like you would run this is if your players, like the players knew that it was a thing, but hadn't read the adventure, you know, and came to you and was like, we want to give this a go. And then I guess I would be like, okay, well, you know what that means, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think as just sort of a fun one shot, right? Like, we're going to run this deadliest adventure ever made, make up some characters, kit them out, and let's run this.
Maybe.
Sure.
Or if you're at the end of a campaign and everyone's done and bored, but want one kick of the can, you know?
Yeah, if you're going to retire the characters anyway.
Like we're starting a new campaign next week. Do you guys want to try the Tomb of Horrors? People go, what's that? And you go, it's the most deadliest place out there. We give it a run.
But again, like, I guess other than as a feather in your cap, like, I don't know that if I actually ran through this and got to the end that I'd feel good about it. Because so many of the things are arbitrary in that there's no way to figure it out. Like, it's literally, I mean, the touching the rod to the crown, it's a literal coin flip. There's nothing about any of those items that indicate that there's a right way of doing it or a wrong way of doing it. You know what I mean?
It's an adventure too that, like, you could never do again. Like, I don't think having read it, I could ever play it now.
Well, no,
because there's no way that you would not use the knowledge that you have. So it's just a one-time thing that you do once in your life, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you could never run it for the same group twice.
So I guess other than for the sharing the stories about the horrible ways you died in it, which, again, I totally understand and think that is a fun way of reminiscing about stuff, but I don't know how much fun it is when you're doing an adventure that the whole point is to die.
Yeah, that's going to happen,
right? So I totally get it as a competition adventure, right? Where, you know, that's the hook. We're going to play it at the convention. It's, you know, whoever makes it the furthest wins.
Yeah,
you know, the D&D Cup or what have you, but. At a home game?
Nah.
I
don't think so, yeah.
I couldn't be bothered. Like, there's not even much in here that I would cannibalize, right? Lots of the adventures that we talk about, I probably wouldn't run them, right? I'm just like, it's okay. Like, or not not enough of it is better than what I could just come up with on my own. But I can usually find a couple of really good things to steal. Maybe I'm going to steal that bit of the dungeon, or I'm going to steal that item, or what have you. There's not even that much in this, considering how many death traps there are. I don't know how many of them are clever enough that I would actually want to steal. I mean, I do think the teleportation and all of their equipment gets left behind is kind of hilarious and reminiscent of what we talked about when we did Ravenloft, you know, the transposition with the white. I mean, your equipment's getting left behind.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I can't imagine a situation where my players wouldn't be furious, all of their gear being taken from them with no save, no warning, and just gone.
Now you're naked.
Now you're naked.
Good luck.
You find yourself at the start of the dungeon, naked, you know, butt cheeks in the wind, which, again, it's designed to be a humorous thing more than.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the idea of useful. Like the false crypt is nice.
Oh, yeah, I guess fair enough. Yeah. For as much as I disparaged, I think I did really enjoy the false crypt and could see myself using that.
Like, it would be a fun idea for a low level adventure that, like, you're going into somewhere Like, I like the idea of that it's all illusions, you know, that it was just remnants of charms and wards cast on this thing, and it looks like it's impossible.
Yeah.
Like, that seems like a good tactic that, like, a spellcaster would use to deter people, you know, the kind of wizard behind the curtain idea.
Yeah, I don't think illusions in general get used enough in campaigns. I mean, I think part of the problem is with how reasonably easy they can be overcome sometimes. But the idea of, say, taking a zombie and using it as a foundation to do illusions, like that kind of subterfuge, I think, is actually kind of clever and definitely usable. But anyways, I don't want to poo-poo on this anymore. People have run this. People have loved it, and it is on the list of the best D&D adventures ever. I think nostalgia is mostly the cause of that. It's not I don't even think I put it on my list of, you know.
Of everything we've done so far, this doesn't make the list.
Yeah, no, not even
close.
Not even close. I mean, literally, PCs can die for no reason in this.
Yep.
Right? I open the door. Sorry, you're dead. Right? Like, literally, there's more than one occasion where that's all they have to do. Like, all they have to do is open a door, and they die.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not fun. Obviously, other people's mileage may vary on that, but I don't know. I'm just repeating myself at this point.
Take a read. So. Let us know what you think. If you have run it, let us know what you think. Next week, we are tackling Burnt Offerings. We're jumping over the Pathfinder. Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.